Now, the name of this case lends itself to some pretty obvious jokes, and just like Logan, I'm gonna go for the most obvious one. Hey look, I'm a Hadron Collider. So when we open up the case, the first thing we find is an accessory box, which contains, yes, a power cable, because this is a high-end case with an integrated power supply. More on that later. We've also got a manual. Whoa, and whatever I threw over there, I believe that's an EVGA case badge. And finally, oh cool, we have some little like cable management clips and some screws for mounting a 5 1/4 inch slimline optical drive, as well as a 3.5 inch / 2.5 inch sled and some SATA cables, and finally, like a Hadron tattoo stickery thing. Next up, we've got very nice packaging. Nice construction paper, cardboard, whatever this stuff's called, on the outside, and then some nice closed cell soft foam to keep it nice and safe while it's being transported. And then finally, okay, well, we're gonna have to take marks off for that. Their, protective, paper around the outside of the Hadron isn't very strong. Actually, we're not gonna take any marks off for that whatsoever because it is extremely well packaged, which is very unusual for a new case manufacturer because this is EVGA's first computer case. They've done lots of other computer hardware over the years, but never a chassis before. Couple of small corrections there, guys. Yes, that was a case badge that I threw all the way across the room, and this is for the slimline slot loading optical, which isn't necessarily 5 1/4 inch. It's just a slimline slot loading optical, and it goes right about here. So on the right-hand edge, we've got the spot for that, as well as a headphone and microphone jack and 2 USB 3.0 ports. We've also got perforations along the bottom edge of the case, perforations along the entire bottom of the case, as well as a nice little rubber foot at the back, and then a larger, more raised metal piece at the front that actually gives it a bit of like an upward tilted posture once the case is actually put down on the desk. Then on the left-hand side, we've got a full side panel window that will reveal the unexceptional cable management characteristics of this particular case. Only this side panel comes off at all. And in fact, the other side panel doesn't. So all of your cable management will be done with zip ties and just trying to keep things, out of the way of each other as much as you possibly can. Moving on to the top of the case, the entire top of the case is again perforated. And if there's anything EVGA understands, it's the need for airflow to cool the other components in your system, particularly modern hot running graphics cards. So we're going to go ahead and reveal that under that perforation, which unfortunately doesn't have dust filters, although it doesn't make that much of a difference to me if you're using it for exhaust. Yes, 2 120mm fans that are able to take air in from the bottom of the case, which is where I showed you before. There's lots of ventilation, lots of perforation, and then exhaust it out the top of the case. I actually quite like this design. The case overall feels solid without feeling heavy, and this is something that again is unusual for a first-time case maker. You usually expect them to cheap out on things like packaging, not understanding the importance, or cheap out on the construction and the metal quality, and that hasn't happened here at all. At the back of the case, we've got 2 tubing holes if you wanted to run external water cooling, as well as 2 PCI slots where you can have a single expansion card and it'll be dual slot because it's a graphics card, and then you're pretty much good to go. Finally, we end up here. Yes, the power supply that I mentioned before. 80+ gold efficiency, slim power supply, with a 500-watt capacity. This is what has enabled EVGA to achieve this extremely unique form factor here, because unlike Silverstone's approach, which is usually to go with SFX, the slim power supply allows them to really control the vertical height of the case. In fact, it's only about 12 inches by 12 inches by 6 inches wide. So we're gonna go ahead and open it up and discover something that has bothered a lot of other reviewers, but I personally give exactly 0 cares about, and that is the fact that the powder coating doesn't extend to the inside in all places. You can see that there are places where it is actually visible that there's bare metal here. These are things that you will never see, especially once you actually have a system installed in the case, and it's the kind of thing that I really tend to not stress out about very much at all. Once we're inside, we can also find all of the things that are inside. So the inside features, I'm going to start with the thing that is devastating and terrible to me, and then we'll move on to the things that I think are great. And that is this right here. There's no CPU cutout, and instead EVGA has opted for their own proprietary layout that's going to be compatible with their own MITx motherboards, which quite frankly, not a whole lot of people are using. So I really would have rather seen the other side panel open up, and I would have rather had the flexibility to install a cooler from the back. There's actually a fair amount of room in the case for a decent sized tower cooler, although you won't be putting something like an NHD14 in here. For drive mounting options, we have these two caddies, which are capable of holding either a 2.5-inch or a 3.5-inch drive. If you got creative, you could pull these out and you could probably cram a whole whack ton of SATA 2.5-inch drives in there. And then this third slot right here is for that slimline optical drive. Moving on down, we've got the front panel I/O connectors. So there's USB 3. I would have loved to see a black cable for this, but I do like that it's flat, it's a ribbon cable, as well as HD audio and power switch and power LED. There is no reset switch and there is no drive activity LED on this particular chassis. Followed by the power supply wires. So these, I guess the benefit of having a custom power supply built just for your case is that you can have all the wire lengths make sense so that the cables can be easily managed. So the 24-pin, for example, looks like it can be easily chucked over here. You can run some twist ties through all these perforations on the drive cage here. Again, another smart touch from EVGA, enabling lots of passive airflow to be drawn over the drives by these fans, as well as the active airflow right up here. Just absolutely love that. And so you can sort of cable tie that to that and put that where it needs to go. And then you look, by contrast, at the graphics card harness, which is extremely short and obviously designed to just plug directly into an up to 10.5-inch graphics card right here, and you can see that they've thought it out quite carefully. SATA connectors, they provide only 2 because in theory you can only really have 2 SATA drives in the system, but then they give you 4 more auxiliary standard 4-pin Molexes, so you can adapt those to whatever else you happen to need depending on what you are doing with the case. So overall, what would I say about this? It's a great first try. In fact, it's a good case. Great first try though. They've missed a couple small things. I mean, I think the powder coating issue that other reviewers have complained about is one thing. Missing the CPU cutout is another for me. But they've also really nailed a few things, like the overall build quality, the quality of the packaging, so your system is going to arrive in one piece if you have something pre-built with this, or even your case is going to arrive in one piece if you order one, as well as the inclusion of an extremely high quality power supply that can handle any MITx system that you can put in here, plus something like a GTX 780 Ti without any trouble. I think they've got a lot going for the Hadron Air. Thank you for checking out my unboxing and overview of the Hadron Air from EVGA. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos.